The image of an invitation to a feast in the parable of the bridal banquet also occurs in the parable of the 10 virgins, and in that of the faithful servant. The interpretations are unanimous in affirming that, the invitation being addressed first to the Jewish people, and with the coming of Jesus, it would extend to all nations. But in the Gospel of Matthew, there is a detail in this banquet that has created discomfort for scholars. The expulsion of a guest for being without the bridal garment. Saint Augustine interpreted the piece of clothing as a symbol of charity. Martin Luther suggested that the garment would represent Christ himself. And John Calvin made other interpretations. Then the question arises. What is hidden in this message? What did Jesus really mean in this parable? That's what we're going to translate now.
Traduziremos o Evangelho em todas as línguas, em todas as culturas, exaltando.
The kingdom of heaven is similar to a king who celebrated his son's nuptials. He sent his servants to call the guests to the nuptials, but they did not want to come. He again sent other servants recommending, "Say to the guests, Behold, I have prepared my feast. My bulls and barley have already been beheaded, and all is ready. Come to the nuptials." They, however, without paying any attention, went away, one to his field, another to his business, and the rest, seizing the servants, mistreated and killed them. Faced with this, the king became very angry and, sending his troops, destroyed those murderers and set fire to their city. Then he said to the servants, "The wedding is ready, but the guests were not worthy. Go therefore to the crossroads and invite everyone you find to the wedding." And these servants, going out along the roads, gathered all they found, both bad and good, so that the wedding hall was filled with guests. When the king entered to examine the guests, he saw a man there without a wedding garment, and said to him, "Friend, how did you come in here without a wedding garment?" He, however, remained silent. Then the king said to those who served, "Bind his feet and hands, and cast him out into outer darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are invited, but few are chosen."
Let's ask that first we remove the idea of an invitation to a banquet intended for a people or nation. No. One should not observe it that way, but this call to the wedding, being made to individuals, I mean to individual people. Another idea that we must remove is that the invitation to the feast, to the banquet, means the definitive entrance into the kingdom of God. No. A distinction must be made in what is symbolically written, to enter into the definitive kingdom of God, and to participate in the banquet, the feast, in the kingdom of God. That understood, let's move on. But, to whom was this invitation directed? Which people were chosen for the wedding feast? Well, we know that the prophets had the responsibility of guiding the Jewish people, receiving messages from beyond, and transmitting them to the people. They were like intermediaries. We made a reference to the Jewish people, but other nations also had their guides. History tells us about these prophets, these enlightened ones, these messengers who in a way fulfilled their missions, some very well, and others not so much. But what about those who did not fulfill their task at all? Who failed disastrously? And those others who pretended to be messiahs or prophets? So let's understand it this way. The king gives orders to the servants. Who are the servants? Those who are close to the king. They are the angels, the highest spirits. They obey the order and go to the chosen ones, to the individuals, to invite them to the wedding feast. Finally, who are the chosen ones for the wedding banquet? They are those who have the ability to interact with the spiritual world. Not a nation, not a people, but individuals with the faculty to communicate with spirits or angels. These are the guests for the wedding banquet. In Jewish culture, they are called prophets. They are the messengers. There are various denominations in other cultures. So we will find in Luke a reference to these guests.
Then there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth when you see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and all the prophets in the kingdom of God, but you yourselves thrown out. People will come from east and west and north and south, and will take their places at the feast in the kingdom of God. Indeed, there are those who are last who will be first, and first who will be last.
Note that Jesus only refers to prophets, and that people from other regions will also come to participate in the feast in the kingdom of God. It was understood that the servants were the prophets who received orders from the king to invite people to the banquet. And it's not like that. The prophets are the guests at the feast in the kingdom of God. In the parable, we have those who refuse to participate in the wedding banquet. Could those be the intermediaries who, upon hearing or seeing these angels, preferred to go to their country house or their businesses? Have you heard about these intermediaries who negotiate their gifts? In short, the invitation is made broadly, and the good and the bad can enter and participate in the party. But there would be one, among the good and the bad, who would be expelled. Here comes a question. What is the clothing of the Spirit? What is the clothing of the soul? It is the body. The body is the temple of the Spirit, the body is what clothes the soul. So it is understood. When the king expels a guest for not having the wedding garment, Jesus is informing us that there was a deceiver, a charlatan, who pretended to be a prophet, who claimed to receive messages from beyond, but did not have that communication. For to carry out this exchange, to be able to see and hear spirits or angels, it is necessary that the physical body, which is in the language of the parable, the garment, be suitable. That in some way, the physical body of an illuminated prophet, messenger, or whatever denomination one wants to give, possesses an appropriate organic disposition, in the language of the parable, the wedding garment. The garment is the body, and the individual expelled did not have the appropriate body for this communication. In short, he did not have the wedding garment. He was a charlatan, deceiver, a pretender, who posed as a prophet. Let's use a symbolic example for better understanding. Our eyes are the instruments to see objects. Suppose our eyelids were closed and stuck. We would have eyes, but we would see nothing. The instrument to see the spiritual world, we all have it, but it's figuratively with closed eyelids. But in some people, they are open or they open. These are the ones who communicate with the beyond. To have the right to the invitation in the parable of the wedding feast, to have enough oil and keep the lamp lit, in the parable of the 10 virgins. In symbolic language, we can say, to have an open eye. The lamp of the body is the eye. Let your light shine. That is the wedding garment. This is the true meaning of the parable of the wedding banquet. If anyone has ears to hear, let him hear.
Mas virá o momento em que a boa nova deve ser impressa